What's up, game developers? Chris DeLeon here of Gamketo, and today we're going to talk about some of the psychological and mental and personal issues that come up in the process of making games. Now, I touched upon this in one of the other recent videos, a couple videos ago, I think, about like kind of sometimes the hard parts, the easy part, getting through that slog of stuff that's not as fun, not as challenging, just like isn't as rewarding to do. But in general, there's a whole suite of issues. I mean, that's tip of the iceberg of the psychological things we have to push ourselves through as game developers. And people who are already making games, you already know this. This isn't a surprise to you. If anything, in that case, if you're already having these problems, I want to try to help reassure you these are normal. This is a part of game development. You're not alone. Everyone else having it is having these exact same struggles too. But if you're only considering game development and haven't gotten into it, this is going to be a little bit of a talk about what you're setting yourself up for, what's down the line, and maybe an argument for why you should do it anyway. But these problems range from anything of any angle on matters like imposter syndrome, burnout, fatigue, various forms of self-doubt, constant second-guessing ourselves, being in a situation where, if you at least have a situation where you're going to work, someone gives you a problem to do, you do the problem, you check the box, and you go home having done your part, you can be confident that you did what you're supposed to do. When you're making your own projects, it is constantly an open-ended question of like, am I even doing the right thing at all? Is this completely the wrong approach? Is this completely the wrong process, the wrong project? Am I going about this all wrong? What is in my blind spots that I'm overlooking? Etc., etc., etc. And to make matters worse, it is something in which we as disproportionately, a lot of people in making games, it's not true for everybody, a disproportionate amount of game developing men and women are people who, as our path in life, in many cases are coming to it as technical people. We've got backgrounds in computer science or an adjacent field in a lot of cases. We spend a lot of time programming as sort of building up a foundation to the same skills that we're using in game making, and a lot of people are coming to it from like an IT direction or from even just personal kind of technical interest and comfort, which sometimes also just evolved from a lot of us grew up playing video games, which certainly even 10 years ago meant having to be pretty comfortable with a computer to handle installing software and configuring graphics cards and stuff that gratefully has gotten simpler, but used to just be this barrier to entry of like if you didn't have a reasonably technical mindset and comfort with technology, you weren't playing a lot of those computer games and stuff anyway. But as part of that, we've been shielded from things that our peers in life, who sometimes it can look like weren't going on or to the same type of difficulty of fields we were. We'd think about like, well, in math, there's a certain right answer. In engineering, there's a certain kind of right answer. And you solve the problem and you get the right answer and you get to go home happy. But it shielded us from the things that our peers who went off to what we might consider softer fields, not to say easier, but fields where there's less of an objective answer. So friends who went off into creative writing or into any kind of art-related field, where they were getting conditioned for critique, for harsh feedback, for learning how to separate judgment of the thing that they're doing from themselves, for getting practice at having an expert just tear their thing apart so that they can try to make it better. At things like, so we, like I say, with our problems in like say engineering kind of related fields, there'd be a right answer and you could do the right answer and I can test the answer and that's clearly the right solution to this equation or whatever. As opposed to, if you have like 3 weeks to make a painting and every single day you could just start over, or any given moment you might be wondering, is this the right thing at all to paint, let alone the right way to do it? And it's a different set of challenges that people, I don't know that it ever gets easier, but I can say that as people get experience with it, they at the very least can brace themselves for that impact and recover from it more readily each time we go through it. But for game developers, people who, like I say, are coming into it fundamentally as a creative, open-ended, artistic field, oftentimes, at least from the game programming, game design side, game developer side, as being a programmer person, it can be sometimes our first time really hitting these things head on in a project that we're personally invested in, we personally care about. And it can be really difficult to grapple with when, like I say, we kind of expected the hard part might be like, can I make it do the thing I want to make it do? Can I get this feature to work? Can I challenge myself to make it function? And then what we find out is that part of the difficulty is okay, well, was that the right problem at all? Am I setting myself up for failure by unrealistically evaluating my abilities? And that's something that's always hard, right? One of the things that makes a beginner is they're not yet able to make an informed judgment of how hard or complicated certain things are. I mean, obviously they can look at Grand Theft Auto 5 and see that that's out of their scope, usually. But even among the beginner spectrum, there's a broad range of stuff that like looks like a beginner could do it, but is kind of the product of like 15 years of experience from an extremely battle-hardened developer. And we just take for granted what went into producing a reasonably simple, well-designed looking thing. It can be harder than it looks. But because of that, we have to self-evaluate, constantly risking that we're either selling ourselves short and we're wasting our time not pushing ourselves, or that we're setting ourselves up for failure by getting into a project we're going to be in over our heads, feel overwhelmed, and quit, and then feel kind of crushed because like we had this personal vision and personal dream that now we're worried isn't ever going to come to fruition, never going to see the light of day. We've told our friends and family about it. We've talked about it online. We've posted about it. We're proud of it. We even showed some beginning screenshots. Maybe we started a blog about it, and now we're starting to wonder and starting to crumble into being like, but maybe I can't do this. And like, that's hard. That sucks. That is difficult. That is, and again, some of you know this. Some of you, this is not a surprise. But to other people, it is to say that this is part of what you're signing up for. And then when you release something, I mean, so far we're only talking about like when you start a project and like the middle of a project. When you release something and you might think, I'm done with it and I can go on with my life. Of course you can't. Because what then winds up happening is you're either looking at the stats and you're disappointed that nobody's looking at it, which statistically a lot of people are making stuff that people are not looking at. Most things don't get a lot of eyeballs. And the ones that do get a lot of eyeballs, the more eyeballs you get, the more negative feedback you're going to get. Because strangers do not care about your feelings. Strangers care about their time. And if you sold something, strangers care about their money. But either way, you're getting some pretty rough, unpolished feedback from people who are on practically like a crusade to protect other people from making the mistake of giving you $1. Or even giving you 5 minutes of their time as a stranger. They have got to shut you down. And it's hard. And it's hard because we invest ourselves so much in these projects, right? I mean, it's like I used to kind of talk about, it's been a long time since I've had this kind of spiel, but like when I build something, when I make a video game, I have so much control and say over what's going into it, right? I could change anything about it I want. I could try to build a longer experience, a shorter one, make it more difficult, less difficult. I could have just anything I say or choose about it. Everything in there, every little piece of that game is a decision I get to make as the developer. Or if it's a team, then the group of us make it collectively, but still came out of us as our decisions, which I think makes us even more vulnerable to when it's really harshly torn apart. Because like, if someone makes fun of how I look, and I'm grateful to say it hasn't happened a whole lot, but if certainly in high school, maybe my nose or something, I've had some unfortunate haircuts over the years, whatever things it might be, or there's time periods when I was in better shape and there's time periods I was in worse shape. But if someone critiqued like physical appearances, like, well, this is what I got to work with, right? Like this is the blend of my parents' genes. I can kind of come to terms with, there's only so much I'm doing with this, right? But man, when you make something where everything in there is yours, and like I say, this is not news to the rest of the world. This is news largely disproportionately to game developers. Like writers have always dealt with this. Artists have always dealt with this. Any kind of primarily creative professions always learn from like every year of their schooling. Like this is life. Brace yourself, prepare for it. You're going to get shot down, knocked down, beat up, and keep getting back up. It's just that in engineering school, they did not at all prepare us for this type of hassle, this kind of challenge. But this is also part of why it's so damn good for us. This is also a big part of the benefit to come from it. It is this idea that, like I say, it may never actually get easier, but at the very least getting experience where you try something, you find it's hard, you find it's uncomfortable, you find it frustrates you, you find it makes you question your abilities, makes you question your capabilities and your direction and your choices, but then you stick with it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, even when you know that there's times where it's frustrating, or you're sad, or you feel lost, or even you run into these problems. It's the pure complexity of the human element. I mean, when you move past building games alone, and you're building games on teams, whether you're leading a team or on a team, you get these really, really just new kinds of challenges where it's definitely not a code problem, or art problem, or design problem. It's a human challenge of how you talk to somebody who's a little bit more aggressive, or a little more abrasive, or a little more easily upset, or, we see it happen all the time where someone like they'll just like if on a given game, it's easy for us to overpromise and get ourselves in trouble. On any given game we're working on with a team, it's really easy for us to be a little optimistic about what we think we're going to get done this week. And then, real life takes over or something and we don't quite get to it. It's upsetting, and suddenly it can be really tough to get back into it because we have to kind of figure out how to broach back into that conversation of I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't get to what I meant to last week. I want to say I'm going to do better this week, but I don't know yet if I want to promise that because I'm afraid now that I'm going to be wrong again about what I can get done if other things come up. And these are part of game development, but these are also part of life as a whole. And these are things that to the extent that we have been shielded from them by privilege of being in a professional career track or line or personal set of interests that have enabled us to not have to worry about these intense human communication, interpersonal challenges, these personal grapplings with uncertainty and open-ended questions and doubts about what we're doing and reception of the public in response to who we are and what we're choosing to do and how we're choosing to do it. I think it helps us become, in a way, more complete people to work through that stuff, to deal with it, to suck it up. And again, this is not to beat the drum and say video game development is somehow superior to anything else that people learn these things through. Some people learn it through playing in a band in a garage. Some people learn it through doing open mic night and comedy nights. Some people learn it through just different avenues in life. Some people do it by running marathons. Whatever it is, people learn these life lessons in different ways. But for a different set of us in the population who, let's be honest, I'm not running a marathon. I'm not doing open mic comedy nights, and I'm not, writing novels or short stories or whatever. I might have missed out on some of these lessons if my sheer drive to want to make video games hadn't just forced these problems into my life. And it really is the emotional equivalent of if you go to the gym and realize you're not as strong as you thought you were, or you're not as good a runner as you kind of thought you were, or you try a sport and you realize you kind of suck at it. But then you stick with it long enough and you start to get better at it. You can see those improvements in yourself. You start to take some pride in it. You start to see some self-confidence build from it. You start to question less and less that, if the world is going to throw things at you, that you've got enough scars that it's not going to catch you off guard, that you can deal with that you're kind of a little more built up to it. So anyway, this is what I say when I say it shouldn't scare someone off that this is part of it. If you're in the middle of these problems, you're not alone. They're real. They're legit. They're happening to everybody. They're happening to hundreds of thousands of people a day who are trying to make games also. Anyone projecting otherwise is trying to project an image of they have their act together, or they know what they're doing or whatever, because they're trying to fake it until they make it, because that's part of this strategy for trying to cope with this stuff. But the reality is, right, we're all pretty freaked out all the time. The other part, though, is that, again, if you haven't gotten to making games, if you're one of these people watching these videos and you just keep thinking about, maybe I'll make games, I got some ideas in my mind, whatever, this isn't a reason to not do it. These are reasons to do it, because it's going to help you in just these less tangible ways, not just become a better programmer, not just become a better designer, not just become a better artist, but it can also help kind of improve your interpersonal communication skills, your leadership skills, your just sort of resilience to little things life's going to throw at you. I've had things come up in my business history that might have shaken me. I've had things that came up in my little time in and out of school and graduate school and whatever, teaching and otherwise, that I think would have rattled me a heck of a lot worse if I hadn't had to, at some point, survived some kind of little tumult of some game-related stuff, and then kind of internalizing and coping with weird, crazy, hateful reviews from people that are strangers, or discouragement from people who barely know me, or just these really long arc projects, and wondering if it's ever going to come out, if it's ever going to happen, and if it's in me to finish that, and then just being able to keep pushing through until being able to show myself yeah, maybe not as soon as I thought, maybe not as grand as I thought, maybe not as successful as I thought or whatever, but I did it, and that was worth something. So that's it for now. It's Chris down for Gamketo. Thanks for tuning in. I look forward to playing your games in the future. Keep making games. Bye for now.